All right, welcome guys. Welcome back to the Sports Casual. My name is Jack Paisley, and we've got a bunch of sports to talk about. Big week in the NFL playoffs this week. Some of it was tough for me to watch. I'm not gonna lie. I am a notorious non-Chiefs fan. You won't find many guys that are less a fan than me. Which, to be fair, I am a Denver Broncos fan, so it just runs in my blood. But let's get into the Chiefs versus the Texans. Obviously, playing out in Arrowhead, and the Chiefs get the 23-14 win. I'll start by saying objectively, the team is very good. The Chiefs are a solid team, obviously a well-run organization, great coach, okay quarterback, but what do I know? But getting into the game, it the Texans showed up to play. Like I think everybody kind of pictured them getting steamrolled. I mean, it does kind of help that they had such a great performance last week against the Chargers that everybody also thought they were just going to get kind of boat raced by. But the game felt really close for basically the first half. And I think that you saw everybody, including the announcers, just start to get frustrated with the refs. Um, it just felt like any time the Chiefs would screw up on like a big down, like a big third down, they would miss it and they would get bailed out by some bullshit call. Like there were several roughing the passer penalties that were called that clearly were not penalties. Like even the announcement team was like that's not a foul. That's a bad call. They just got a huge break. And to be fair to the Chiefs, whenever they got those breaks, they capitalized and scored, which is what they were supposed to do. But I think any fan of the NFL that claims to be a Chiefs fan, if you don't see that the refs are giving you guys help more than any other team in the league, except maybe Buffalo. Buffalo is probably the only close one, unless they're playing the Chiefs, obviously, which could theoretically happen here in about a week. Um, you got a crybaby quarterback back there, biggest in the league, named Patrick Mahomes, that bitches and moans about anybody within 5 feet of him. Second he gets touched, he's crying for a flag. You literally saw him flop out of bounds, and thankfully it wasn't called. But I'm sorry. Like I think that the NFL needs to look into this at the end of the season because you're treating him as a moving quarterback. Which once he's past the line of scrimmage or even outside of that pocket, and he's a runner at that point. And you see guys like Derrick Henry, or not Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, or even Josh Allen, and some of these other guys. Like they're not getting these calls that this guy is getting, and they're doing the same thing. They're running with the football as a runner, and he's dropping down. He's baiting guys into hitting him, and I'm just gonna say it's bullshit. Like I'm not gonna wish wash on my opinion on that. It's bullshit. But the rest of this playoffs, like I'm gonna be honest, outside of whoever wins the game tomorrow between the Rams or not the Rams, the Ravens and the Bills, I don't see a team beating them. You just have to play such a perfect game, and you need things to go wrong in terms of injuries or drops for the Chiefs because they have such support from the officiating. And in my opinion, I think that's coming from the high ups at the NFL. I think they know it's good for business to have the face of the league in Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl and go for this historic three-peat that probably will never happen again. I think they know that's good for business. So they are telling their officials if it's close, if you're sensing the tide kind of shifting, you know, get pretty ticky tacky with these calls or even just overlook some of these rules because they're missing hip drop tackles from the Chiefs too. Um, so tough for the Texans, but I mean they're still an up and coming team. Like obviously CJ Stroud's going to be your franchise guy for a while. So you can continue to build around him. You really got to stouten up that O line though. Like he was not playing great this game, but that's been their big issue this year. It's just been keeping him upright, and then obviously they've gotten some injuries at the wide receiver, whether that's Tank Dell or Stephon Diggs. That they did come in a little depleted offensively in terms of that, but I thought they outplayed the Chiefs for a lot of that game, other than on the special teams side. So unfortunately, the Chiefs continue. I will continue to root against them the whole time and hope that they lose. But that's just because I'm a bitter rival fan. So I'm sure they're great people. I'm sure we'd be friends if we met in real life. But second they put those ugly red uniforms, the most boring uniforms in the league on, it's yeah, not a fan. But moving on to the next NFL game was the Washington Commanders versus the Detroit Lions. Obviously, out in Detroit, huge deal. Place was popping. It looked like, and they got disappointed. It was a 45-31 victory for the Commanders, and I've been saying this for a while. One, the Lions are just beat up. Like basically the second they lost Aiden Hutchinson to that broken leg, they were on borrowed time. Like that defense just was hurt, and they were relying on the offense to get into these basically shootouts where they have to score 40 points to win. And today was just the first day of the season that Goff was a little off, and you couldn't quite get to that score. And even then, they still put up 31, and it was a two-score game at the end. But like they still scored, but that defense just could not stop the Commanders. And I think a lot of the U.S. was kind of okay with seeing Detroit win it all, just because they've been bad for so long. It's kind of viewed as like a working man's uh, city and team kind of thing. So I think that a lot of the U.S. was kind of bummed, but I think the story of the coming out of this game could be that the Lions screwed it up and Dan Campbell fucked it up and all this stuff. But I think the story is is Washington. Like I think this team is the epitome of why America loves the NFL. Washington historically, other than that small window with like RG3 for that one season, and then a couple of years with Kirk Cousins, like in large part, they have been a laughing stock of the NFL, just a joke of a franchise, even though they're a historic franchise. And obviously, they had one of the worst owners in probably in sports history, in Dan Snyder, and he sells the team and kind of gets forced by the NFL, and then this new ownership group comes in, brings in Dan Quinn, drafts Jane Daniels, and completely flips the culture. And all of a sudden, they're like, I'm sure a bunch of free agents going to want to go there because of the culture that these guys have picked or built. And I personally think that Dan Quinn should be in the running for coach of the year. Like he's done an amazing job. Cliff Kingsbury is probably the best offensive coordinator in the league right now. That's not like a Sean McVay or a Sean Payton or an Andy Reid. That's like a head coach. And if you gave me the option, I would hire Cliff Kingsbury in Chicago over the OC from the Lions. I would choose him over him right now. He's just got a longer track record, even with his tenure in Arizona. Like he just works well with young mobile quarterbacks. I would bring him in to work with Caleb Williams. I don't think he really wants to. I think he likes being the OC better. But they've done just an amazing job, and obviously I'm a big Vanilla Vic guy, a Bo Nix. He's my team's quarterback. I will live and die by him until we're on to the next one. But I mean that Jane Daniels is just a excellent quarterback. There's no other way you can put it. I wish they would run a little more like Lamar in terms of a red zone package for him. I think that little like option with the pass option as well that the Ravens run really well on either short downs or in the end zone in the red zone. I think that's something that they should implement for him. But I think they're the story. Like I don't think it was that Detroit played bad. I think Washington just showed up and they're just on a mission. They're like everybody was talking about like the Packers a couple years ago being like that young team that's I think it was last year they upset everybody that they're just so young they don't know what they don't know. And I kind of think Washington feels similar to that with Jaden Daniels. And obviously they all believe in him. He's top 3 all-time rookie quarterbacks. Like I don't think you can argue that. You could argue he's the best one ever theoretically. There is an argument for it, but they just put a spanking on them, and like it would be crazy if in his rookie year he wins the Super Bowl, and it could happen. Like I don't think they match up poorly against any of these other teams, whether that's the Rams or the Eagles. Obviously, I would say the Eagles is probably a tougher matchup because they're in division, so they've seen each other. And then you're gonna have to go to Philly, which is a cold, miserable weather game. So I think they would. I'm not sure what the seeding would be in terms of matchups, but I think they would rather play the Rams objectively. I think they match up a little bit better, but there's a world where a rookie wins the Super Bowl in his first year, which is just all time. Like that's crazy to think about. So congrats to the Commanders and Lions. Like you gotta boost up that defense, and it's gonna get tough because I think you're gonna lose both of your coordinators most likely in this hiring cycle for coaches. So you're starting from scratch. So we might have seen the last era of the Lions being a top three team in the NFL, and they just never got it done, which is just it's a shame for that city. But you are at least relevant, and you probably will be for years to come. So I guess congrats to the Lions on a good season, but that's a tough way to end it. And then going kind of switching gears a little bit, we had a big UFC event out in LA right now, which uh, had a little bit of a mix up at the top of the card, which was originally supposed to be Arman Sarukian versus Islam Makhachev. And then Arman actually announced yesterday, called Dana White and said my back's no good. I can't fight tomorrow, and so they pulled up Moicano, who was originally supposed to fight Dariush for the title shot. And I mean, the fight itself, Islam won in about a minute based off of Darce, which has kind of become a signature move, and he gets everybody. He's got the arm. He's gotten it against like Poirier and a couple other guys, which he's just clearly like objectively Islam is a monster. Um, I don't think this fight. I think the biggest thing that helps him from this fight is not the fight itself. It's his attitude and his quote that he said leaning into this fight, that he took this championship contender on a day's notice with no time to game plan. Obviously, he's in shape and ready for the fight because he had another one scheduled. But apparently, word on the street is that he called or Dana called and offered him Moicano. He says, "Brother, I don't care who's there. I'm the champ. Gladiators don't pick their opponents." And then said, "I'm going to the bed. Let me know who I'm fighting in the morning." Like that's gangster shit. Objectively, that's a gangster shit. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of those guys. Just I think of all of them, Islam is the most entertaining based off of his style and the fact that he's a becoming a submission artist. But it does. My biggest issue with those Dagestani kind of Muslim fighters is it just feels like they don't fight quite as much because they have that big part of year with Ramadan where, other than Bilal Muhammad, who on his come up was fighting during it, most of them don't really fight in that time frame that much, which is part of their religious beliefs. So they obviously should not. But I'm a greedy UFC fan, so I want to see these guys fight for belts all the time. So that's kind of my only gripe with them. But of all of them, Islam is wildly entertaining in terms of if you're a full mixed martial artist. And I was looking forward to the Saryukian fight because obviously they've fought before and it was a very close fight. And I thought that Arman actually matched up really well against him in terms of the grappling ability. So it was going to be a very fun like striking battle, which is objective. Like just to watch is a more satisfying thing, even if you are kind of a diehard UFC fan and enjoy the grappling and submission stuff. But that didn't happen, and I thought Saryukian has the power that he could actually threaten Islam. Islam had like a little slip against Moicano, but I mean he just outclassed Moicano, who, to be fair, has a similar mindset where he took it on a day, no game plan. Obviously, it's for a world title, so you're gonna take that every time. But just didn't capitalize. I think he'll be back. I mean, I don't think this hurts him at all. Like taking a fight on a day's notice, you can't really hold it against the guy that much, other than you got washed by the fighter. That's kind of the only downside. But that was kind of the main event. And then the fight of the night was Umar Nurmagomedov, who is the cousin of Khabib Nurmagomedov, who is like the best friend of Islam Makhachev. So it's this big triangle that they're trying to complete in terms of titles. And he was fighting Merab Dvalishvili, who is a just a basically a cardio wrestling monster. And Merab gets the unanimous decision fight, wildly like entertaining. Like these guys were moving the whole time. Like the pace is crazy. Like Merab just wore Umar down is basically what it is. You could see his hands just slowly dropping over the time. And I mean, it was kind of just like it was a lot of brawling, to be honest. It wasn't really a technical um, fight in terms of like it looking pretty. Which, if it looked pretty, is how Umar would have won. So Marab did his game plan perfectly to get the win in this fight, and he didn't want this fight to begin with, which was the funny part because Umar basically got catapulted by up to fighting Corey Sandhagen, where he won a close fight with, but clearly won. And he's got the Nurmagomedov name, so they were trying to build another Nurmagomedov. Partially because of all the money in Saudi Arabia, and these guys are huge out there. Like they're, it's like seeing Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or those guys to the Middle Eastern fan base because MMA has just gotten so big out there. And Rob didn't think he deserved it, so there was actually some heat between these two in the lead up. And I was actually surprised that Umar was actually talking some pretty good shit, if I'm honest. And you could tell he got under Merab's skin, but Merab came in and handled business. And he's just a tough dude to match. Like you really got to put that dude's lights out. Like the closest guy was Henry Cejudo, caught him in that first round, and after that he just got washed too. That I don't know who's gonna beat him unless somebody knocks him out because not many guys. Umar was supposed to be the guy that could go that long with him. I think the Corey Sandhagen fight is maybe one you could look at, but I think they're probably gonna go Sean O'Malley as a rematch just because Suga makes money. As simple as that, and I think he's got the style to put him out. But I mean, we saw it, and he lost. That yeah, Marab could have that belt for a while unless somebody goes in there and separates him from consciousness. Uh, and then another big fight was the battle of the former champs in Yuri Prohashka versus Jamal Hill at light heavy. And I was wrong on this fight. I thought Jamal Hill was going to knock Yuri Prohashka out because Yuri gets hit a lot. We've seen it against Alex Pereira twice now. Like, dude's hands are low, gets hit a lot, and Jamal Hill can crack. I actually thought Jamal was going to win this one. But, I mean, Yuri brought in this lady that was battling cancer, shaved his head in solidarity with her since that's her favorite fighter. So maybe karma's a real thing because he looked really really good in this fight. He put a pace similar to like Marab on Jamal. Granted, like he's used to fighting those 5 round or preparing for 5 rounders, but you could just see the like this fast twitch difference between Jamal Hill and Yuri. Like Yuri's always constantly moving. He fights weird. Like he kind of looks like a street fighter, like trying to talk himself into fighting kind of thing when he's doing it. He's a world champion at it. Um, but he puts himself in a weird spot by winning this because he's gotten knocked out twice against Alex Pereira, who currently has the title. So it's kind of hard to like say that he's like just give him another shot because he just had one literally last fight and got his ass whipped by Alex Pereira and got knocked out bad. Like it's kind of a tough one, but like Dana was saying, like it's hard. No one's gonna say no to that fight because it's gonna be entertaining. Like it's gonna be a striking fest. So someone's going to sleep. Probably gonna be Yuri, but you never know. But it kind of got me thinking, like Yuri kind of reminds me of like a Daniel Cormier or Alexander Gustafsson, or even I mean now he's on like Israel Adesanya path where for two of those guys in DC and uh like if John Jones isn't alive, that dude's either him or Gustafson's your world champion for a long stretch, but he's just unlucky, and then that one other dude is there, and that's kind of where Yuri is now that Alex has moved up. That now Yuri's on this Adesanya path with Pereira, where they're just gonna fight fucking 5 times, and at one point Yuri's gonna catch him because these guys are so good that if you give him enough opportunities, at some point he's gonna land that haymaker. That he's kind of in this weird position that he's beaten everybody else that's a legitimate contender. Like there's no one else other than Ankalaev at that weight that is a bona fide contender, unless you're just like trying to give like Alex new names, or if Alex maybe starts talking shit with people. That it's just a tough spot for him. But I mean, he looked really good in that fight. And then just a kind of a fan favorite was Kevin Holland versus Rene de Ritter, which I'm gonna call RDR from this point on. And RDR ended up getting a submission in round one. Reason I include this is Kevin's such a fan favorite. Like his game plan is to fight 6 times this year, which for a professional fighter is just it's crazy. Like there's no other way to say it. He's a monster. Like he's a company man. Anytime they have somebody fall out, he's fought Hamzat in like 2 days notice or a day notice or something. Like he steps in all the time. So he's a fan favorite and he talks shit in the fight, which is fun to watch. But he's lost 4 of his last 5, so he's in this weird spot where everybody still likes him, and he's clearly still a really good fighter. But you gotta now just like put him in these perfect matchups because he can't wrestle to save his life, and he's so talented. Um, Obviously has crazy knockout power. Literally knocked a dude off of his back once. Knocked him out off of his back, and it kind of made me think like he just come like he's always said that this is just a job to him, which I mean like makes sense. Like the dude's made a lot of money, but he's such just a like, with all due respect, a waste of talent. Like he could be your world champ if he just dedicated himself to go to like fucking Dagestan or something like that to go train with those guys and just try to get your takedown defense, or even Adesanya. Like you don't have to be a takedown expert. You just have to stop it. That it was just sad to see because I'm a Kevin Holland fan. It's always fun to see him on there. He's entertaining. His style, when it's up to him, is knockouts or submissions. That he's kind of a killer, be killed kind of guy. So it was a bummer. And then one of my UFC crushes was on this card, which is Eileen Perez fought Carol Rosa, and thank God she got the unanimous decision. I mean, you would know her from she's the girl that twerks after every fight. Like that's honestly how you would know her unless you're big into women's MMA. It's she's just hot. That's why we're including her in this episode. Her and then Tracy Cortez, 2 UFC crushes in my opinion. All in all, hotties with a body. Like, and unfortunately they don't like each other and they're gonna fight each other potentially, and it's gonna be a bummer because those my girls. But congrats, Miss Perez. You looked great doing it, and you got the win. So I'm proud of you. And then the UFC put out a couple announcements. They announced Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev, which talked a little bit about before, but now it's official. I think Alex is actually playing some games a little bit, a little McGregor esque in his mind games. Is I believe he's making Ankalaev fight over Ramadan because he had been threatening not to let Alex or Magomed Ankalaev have a title shot unless it was at this time for him. He said, "I'm champ. It's my time. You fight on my time when I tell you to." And obviously, if you're Ankalaev, like he's not really a fan favorite based off his style. He's primarily a grappler, even though he can definitely strike. Um, that no one's the only people that are like chomping at the bit for this fight in terms of fans are hardcores that want to see Alex lose and fight a grappler because he hasn't fought a ton outside of Jan Blachowicz, or Blachowicz, but uh, Alex, arguably the biggest star in MMA right now. So everybody's going to tune in to watch that one. And then on that same card, this one's still rumored. The UFC actually put this out and then deleted it right away. Uh, but Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker got teased. They put out like a little poster of it and then deleted it immediately. So that's a maybe. But Justin Gaethje was actually talking about it on, I think it was an embedded, that he's preparing for a fight, and that's who he thinks it's going to be, which will be all team, all violence. Dan Hooker is a notorious, like, just psycho. Like, listening to Adesanya, who's a teammate of him, talk about Dan Hooker going in against leg lockers and being like, just break my leg. I don't even need it. I mean, he fought with like a full on shattered forearm, and when Rogan asked about him after a fight that he won, he's like, "Your forearm's huge. What's wrong with you?" He's like, "Oh, it's shattered, but it's not bad. I could go another 5 rounds." That dude's just a savage. And then obviously Justin Gaethje is known as the human highlight reel, known for knocking guys out, nasty leg kicks. That it's just going to be a great fight. Like, great matchup. It's going to be a fun fight for the fans. All team, all violence. That I'm looking forward to that one a lot. And then kind of a weird one was it's a big anniversary for the Ultimate Fighter, which is kind of what saved the UFC at the beginning. So they announced that Chael Sonnen versus Daniel Cormier is going to be the coaches, which was weird because at the end normally the coaches fight, which these guys are old and retired that I would be shocked if they fight. So it's going to be weird. Chael Sonnen is obviously wildly entertaining. The Ultimate Fighters has kind of been on its last legs, in my opinion. Like last year, it was Alex or Alexa Grasso and Shevchenko who ended up fighting for the women's belt for like the third time against each other, and no one watched it at all. Like, I'm friends with a lot of UFC fans, and I maybe met one that watched an episode. And then obviously before it was the Chandler versus McGregor that turned into the whole shit show, the Conor Chandler fight, but no one really watched that one after like the first 2 episodes. And that's just the Conor effect. Like, you got Conor kind of generating it a little bit. That I think this is their kind of like, they're trying to save it. At this point, no one cares. Like, it's they're just watching the Dana White Contender Series. Their power slap, I think, would work better with the Ultimate Fighter style. But all in all, it was just a fun day of sports. Like, wish the Chiefs hadn't won. Um, we'll continue to cheer against them. I mean, Commanders are a legitimate threat, and then just a great UFC card, like, super fun. That thank you guys for watching. This has been Jack Paisley with the Sports Casual.